Simplify the following expression. The quantity 2x squared plus 3 times the quantity 2x minus 1. To simplify, we need to FOIL. The F in FOIL stands for first. So we're going to take the first term in our first binomial and multiply it times the first term in our second binomial. First and first. 2x squared times 2x. 2 times 2 is 4. X squared times x is x cubed. Next we do O, which stands for outer. So those are the two terms on the outside, which would be 2x squared and negative 1. So 2x squared times a negative 1 is negative 2x squared. Then our inner terms are the two terms on the inside, 3 times 2x, which is a positive 6x. And then finally, our last terms. So the last term in the first set of parentheses and the last term in the second set of parentheses. 3 times negative 1, which is negative 3. Then we'd want to look and see if we had any like terms to combine, and we don't. We have a cubic x term, a squared x term, an x term, and then just a constant. So that's our answer, which matches answer choice A. Simplify the following expression. 64x to the fourth plus 8x cubed minus 4x squared plus 16x, all divided by 8x. So really what we have here is 4 separate fractions. I'm going to break this up. 64x to the fourth divided by 8x plus 8x cubed divided by 8x minus 4x squared divided by 8x plus 16x divided by 8x. Every single term is divided by 8x. So now we can take each one of these individually and divide by 8x. 64 divided by 8 is 8. And x to the fourth divided by x, well, let's see what that looks like. X to the fourth divided by x is x times x times x times x times itself 4 times, x to the fourth, divided by x. X divided by x is 1, so those cancel. And what you're left with is x cubed. So x to the fourth divided by x is x cubed. Plus 8 divided by 8 is 1 times, and then we do the same thing with x cubed divided by x. So x cubed divided by x would be x times x times x divided by x. X divided by x is 1, so you're left with x times x, x squared. Minus 4 divided by 8. 4 can't really be divided by 8, but we can simplify 4/8 as 1/2. And then x squared divided by x. You may have noticed from these two examples before that when we divide by x, what we're doing, or really when we divide at all, what we're doing is subtracting the exponents. So x to the fourth minus x to the first, or x to the 4 minus 1, x cubed. So here we have x to the 3 minus 1, x squared. So now we have x squared minus 1, or just x, plus 16 divided by 8 is 2, and x divided by x is 1. So our answer is 8x cubed plus x squared minus 1/2 x plus 2, which is answer B. Simplify the following expression. The quantity 2x minus 20 times the quantity 5x plus 10. To multiply these two binomials, we can use a method called FOIL. And FOIL stands for first, O stands for outer, I stands for inner, and L stands for last. So the F first means to multiply the first term in the first binomial times the first term in the second binomial. First times first. 2x times 5x. 2 times 5 is 10. And x times x is x squared. So it's 10x squared. The O again stands for outer. So that means to multiply the two outside terms. So 2x and 10 are the two terms on the outside, the outer terms. So 2x times 10, 2 times 10 is 20, 2x times 10 is 20x. I stands for inner. That means to multiply the two terms on the inside. So that would be this negative 20 times 5x. Negative 20 times 5x. A negative times a positive is a negative. 20 times 5x is 100x. Then finally, we multiply the last terms together. So that means the last term in the first set of parentheses or in the first binomial times the last term in the second binomial. Last times last. So that's negative 20 times 10, which is negative 200. A negative times a positive is a negative. We're almost done. The last thing we need to do is combine these like terms right here. 20x and negative 100x. So it's really 20x minus 100x. Bring down the 10x squared first. And 20x minus 100x would be negative 80x. Then bring down the negative 200. So looking at our answer choices, looks like answer A would be the correct answer. In a coordinate plane, what is the distance between point A, 4, 9, and B, 15, 18? Well, there's a very straightforward way to answer this question. If we want to find the distance between 2 points in a coordinate plane, then we need to use the distance formula. The distance formula is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And the x2, y2, x1, y1, those are just the coordinates of your ordered pairs. For instance, this is my first ordered pair. So this will be my x1, y1. This is my second ordered pair. So this is my x2, y2. Now all we need to do is substitute. So distance equals the square root of x2 is 15 minus x1 is 4 squared plus y2 is 18 minus y1 is 9 squared. And now we need to follow our order of operations, which means grouping symbols first. So distance equals the square root of 15 minus 4 is 11 squared, plus 18 minus 9 is 9 squared. Next, our order of operations tells us to take care of our exponents. So the distance equals the square root of 11 squared is 11 times 11, which is 121, plus 9 squared is 9 times 9, or 81. Then we need to add. So the distance equals the square root of 121 plus 81, which is 202. And 202 is not a perfect square, so if I take the square root of it, I'm going to get an irrational number, a decimal that just keeps on going. So our answer is simply the square root of 202. The length of a square is 15 centimeters. What is its area? Well, a square is a type of rectangle. And the formula for area of a rectangle is area equals the length times the width, or base times height. But what's special about a square is that its length and width are the same. So if we're told that the length is 15 centimeters, then that means the width is 15 centimeters as well. So we substitute 15 centimeters for the length and 15 centimeters for the width. So 15 times 15. 15 times 15, can multiply that out over here. 5 times 5 is 25. Write the 5, carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. Get rid of that, put your 0 placeholder. 1 times 5 is 5, and 1 times 1 is 1. And we add these up. 5 and 0 is 5. 7 plus 5 is 12. Write the 2, carry the 1. And 1 plus 1 is 2. So 15 times 15 is 225. And centimeters times centimeters is centimeters squared. So the area of a square with length 15 centimeters is 225 centimeters squared, which is answer choice D. (7m plus 43 equals 160). What is the value of m? So first I'm going to rewrite my equation. 7m plus 43 equals 160. We want to know what number multiplied times 7 with 43 added to that would give us 160. And we could guess and check numbers until we found a number that would satisfy this equation. But there's a much easier and more direct way. And that is to undo the operations that are done to our variable m. We're going to start by undoing the addition of 43. So we're going to subtract 43 from both sides. And as long as we do that to both sides, we keep our equation equal and balanced. If you have something that's equal to something else, and you take away the same amount from both of those things, then they'll still be equal to each other. So we bring down the 7m. Positive 43 minus 43 is 0, so those cancel. And we bring down the equals, and then we have to subtract. And I can't take 3 from 0, so I'll borrow from the 6, that's a 5. Then I have 10 minus 3 is 7. 5 minus 4 is 1. And I bring down my 1, because 1 minus 0 is 1. So 117. Now I have to undo this 7 times m, and the opposite of multiplying times 7 is dividing by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1, and 1 times m is m. 117 divided by 7 I'm not sure what that is, so I'm going to divide off to the side. 7 goes into 11 one time. 7 times 1 is 7. When you subtract, you get 4. And then we bring down the 7. 7 goes into 47 6 times. 7 times 6 is 42. We subtract and we get 5. Then we add a decimal and a 0 and bring it down. 7 goes into 50 7 times. 7 times 7 is 49. We subtract and we get 1. We add a 0 and bring it down. 7 goes into 10 one time. 7 times 1 is 7. We subtract and we get 3. And we could keep going, but really that's all I need to find my answer. The 1 tells the 7 to stay the same if we're rounding to the tenths place. So our answer is 16 and 7/10, which is answer choice B. Three x squared y plus y divided by 2 minus 6x. If x equals 4 and y equals 10, what is the value of the expression? First, I'm going to take our expression and copy it. Next, we need to substitute these numbers we were given for their variables. So we're going to replace our x's with 4's. So we have 3, this is 3 times x squared, so it's 3 times 4 squared, times y, which is 10, plus y divided by 2, or 10 divided by 2, minus 6 times x, and we're replacing x with 4. To simplify this expression, we need to follow the order of operations, which some people know as PEMDAS. And in PEMDAS, we do parentheses first, which we don't have here, and then exponents next. We do have exponents, so that means the first thing we'll do to simplify is find what 4 squared is. So we bring down the 3 times 4 squared is 16 times 10 plus 10 divided by 2 minus 6 times 4. So that's all of our exponents. Next in PEMDAS is to do multiplication and division from left to right. So starting on the left-hand side, we'll start with multiplying 3 times 16. And we can work that off to the side. 16 times 3, 3 times 6 is 18, so write the 8, carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So 16 times 3 is 48. So we have 48 times 10 plus 10 divided by 2 minus 6 times 4. We need to continue working our multiplication and division from left to right. So we'll next multiply 48 times 10, which is 480 plus 10 divided by 2 minus 6 times 4. We'll move past the 480 plus, and we'll move right on to division. 480 plus 10 divided by 2 is 5, minus 6 times 4. We have one more multiplication operation to take care of, 6 times 4. So we have 480 plus 5 minus 6 times 4, which is 24. Now we need to go back and consult PEMDAS. We're finished with all our multiplication and division. So we're going to do now our addition and subtraction from left to right. So that means we start with adding 480 plus 5, which gives us 485, minus 24. And 485 minus 24, can work that off to the side. 5 minus 4 is 1. 8 minus 2 is 6. And we bring down the 4, so we get 461, which is answer choice B. Calculate the point of intersection for the following lines. 6x plus 3y equals 24, and 5y minus 10 equals 15x. There are a few different methods for finding the intersection of two lines. One is graphing. And you can just graph the two lines and find where they meet. Sometimes, though, that can be hard, especially when your answers look like this. You can also use elimination, or, like we're going to do on this problem, you can use substitution. And in order to substitute, I need to solve for one of my variables. Looking at my two equations, it looks like it's going to be pretty easy to get y alone in this second equation. And I'll do it in 2 steps. First, we add 10 to both sides. Bring down the 5y. Negative 10 plus 10 is 0. Equals, these are not like terms, so just write them down. Then we need to divide everything by the coefficient of y, which is 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1, times y is y, equals 15x divided by 5 is 3x, and 10 divided by 5 is 2, so plus 2. Now that I've solved for y, I can substitute this expression, 3x plus 2, in my other equation for y. So I'm going to substitute that right there, which means that I now have 6x plus 3 times, instead of y, I'm replacing it with the expression 3x plus 2 equals 24. And now we need to solve for x by first distributing. So 6x plus 3 times 3x is 9x. 3 times 2 is 6, so plus 6 equals 24. Next, we need to combine like terms. 6x plus 9x is 15x. Plus 6 equals 24. Then, we need to subtract 6 from both sides. So 15x equals 18. And finally, we need to divide both sides by the coefficient of x, 15. That's 1 times x is x equals 18 divided by 15. We can do that right over here. 15 goes into 18 one time. That's 15. Subtract and you get 3. Add a decimal and a 0. Bring it down. And 15 goes into 30 2 times. So 1 2/10. Now we're halfway there. And once you find x, it actually gets a whole lot easier to find y. Now that we know what x equals, we can use this expression, or this equation, y equals 3x plus 2, and simply substitute what x is into this equation, and we'll have y. So I'm going to replace x with 1 2/10. So y equals 1 2/10 times 3 is 3 6/10 plus 2. So y equals 5 6/10. Finally, we need to put both of these coordinates together as an ordered pair. X is 1 2/10, and y is 5 6/10, which means our answer is C. What is the midpoint of points A, negative 28, and B, 5, 3? To find the midpoint, we can use the midpoint formula, which is x1 plus x2 divided by 2, then y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And if you look closely, you'll notice what you're doing is you're adding your endpoint x coordinates together and dividing by 2. That's an average, or the middle of those two numbers. So it makes sense that if you're trying to find the midpoint, that you would find the middle of your x coordinates and then also the middle of your y coordinates. And then you'll end up with a midpoint. So now I'm going to label my ordered pairs x1, y1, and x2, y2. So that now I can substitute. So my midpoint is x1 is negative 20 and x2 is 5. So negative 20 plus 5 divided by 2. And then I'll add my y's and divide by 2. So 8 plus 3 divided by 2. And now we just need to simplify. Negative 20 plus 5 is negative 15 divided by 2. And 8 plus 3 is 11 divided by 2. Negative 15 divided by 2, that's a negative divided by a positive, that's a negative. And it's negative 7.5. And then 11 divided by 2 is positive 5.5. So that is answer choice D. Solve for y in the following inequality. Negative 2y is greater than or equal to 24 plus 6. So the first thing we want to do is combine these like terms, 24 plus 6. So we have negative 2y is greater than or equal to, and 24 plus 6 is 30. To solve for y, we need to divide by a negative 2. Since we have negative 2 times y, to undo that and get y alone, we divide both sides by negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1, and 1 times y leaves us with just y. Now, since we divided both sides by a negative, we have to flip our inequality sign. It was greater than or equal to, so now it's less than or equal to. And 30 divided by a negative 2, a positive number divided by a negative number is a negative number. And 30 divided by 2 is 15. That means that y is less than or equal to negative 15, which is answer choice C. If x divided by 3 plus 7 equals 35, what is the value of x? I'm going to start by writing this problem. X divided by 3 plus 7 equals 35. The first thing we want to do is subtract 7 from both sides, because a positive 7 and a negative 7 are additive inverses of each other and they cancel. So on the left side, we're left with x divided by 3. And on the right side, 35 minus 7 is 28. The opposite of dividing by 3 is multiplying by 3. So now we need to multiply both sides by 3. If you put this 3 over 1, now you're multiplying two fractions together, and the numerator and this denominator cross cancel, and you're simply left with x divided by 1, which is just x. So now if we determine what 28 times 3 is, we'll have our answer. 3 times 8 is 24, so write the 4 and carry the 2. And 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So that means that x is 84, which is answer C. Simplify the following expression. 16m to the 16th, y to the 4th, z to the 6th, divided by 8m to the 8th, y squared, z cubed, all raised to the 4th power. First, we want to simplify before we raise to the 4th power. So we're going to start with dividing 16 by 8, which is 2. Then m to the 16th divided by m to the 8th is m to the 16 minus 8. Since when you divide like bases, you subtract the exponents. Y to the 4th divided by y squared is y to the 4 minus 2. And z to the 6th divided by z cubed is z to the 6 minus 3. Now we need to simplify our exponents. So we have 2m to the 16 minus 8, 8, y to the 4 minus 2, 2, and z to the 6 minus 3, 3. We have to be very careful to not forget that all of this is supposed to be raised to the 4th power. So we're not done yet. Now we need to raise everything inside our parentheses to the 4th power. So we'll start with 2 to the 4th. Then we have m to the 8th raised to the 4th. We're raising a power to a power, so we must multiply our exponents. So m to the 8 times 4 is 32. Y to the 2 times 4 is 8. And z to the 3 times 4 is 12. Finally, we need to simplify 2 to the 4th. 2 to the 4th means to multiply 2 times itself 4 times. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So 2 times itself 4 times is 16. M to the 32nd, y to the 8th, z to the 12th. So our answer is answer choice D. If 2x squared equals negative 4x squared plus 216, what is the value of x? I'm going to start by rewriting this problem so I have a little more room to work with it. And if we're trying to solve for x, then we'll need to get all our x's together. So I'm going to add 4x squared to both sides so that way on the right-hand side, it'll cancel because I have a negative 4x squared and a positive 4x squared, and those are additive inverses. Now on the left-hand side, 2x squared plus 4x squared is 6x squared. Bring down the equal sign and bring down 216. So this is 6 times x squared. So to get rid of this 6, we do the opposite of multiplying, which is dividing. Divide both sides by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 1 times x squared is simply x squared. So those 6's cancel. And that equals, and now we can take 216 and divide it by 6. 6 does not go into 2, but it does go into 21. And 6 times 3 is 18. It goes in 3 times and we get 18. 21 minus 18 is 3. We bring down the 6. And 6 goes into 36 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36. So when we subtract, we get a 0 remainder. So that means that 216 divided by 6 is 36. So now we know what x squared equals, but we still haven't found what x equals. So to get x alone, we need to do the opposite of squaring x. And the opposite of squaring is to square root. So we square root both sides. The square root of x squared is simply x. And the square root of 36 is 6. So that means that x is 6. Answer C. Evaluate the following expression if x equals 3. X to the 5th times x squared plus y to the 0 power equals. So first we need to substitute 3 for x. So we have 3 to the 5th times 3 squared plus anything raised to the 0 power, x, y, 10, 15, anything raised to the 0 power is 1. So that's plus 1. 3 to the 5th times 3 squared is really 3 to the 7th power plus 1. And 3 to the 7th power is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 3 times 3. 3 to the 5th times 3 squared plus 1. Okay, so we have a lot of 3's to multiply. 3 times 3 is 9 times 3 times 3 is 9 times 3 times 3 is 9 times 3 plus 1. 9 times 9 is 81 times, and then 9 times 3 is 27 plus 1. Okay, so now we need to multiply 81 times 27. 27 times 81, 1 times 7, 7, 1 times 2, 2, 0 placeholder. 8 times 7 is 56, so write the 6, carry the 5. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 5 is 21. So that's 7, we're adding these together, 8, 1, 2. So 2,187 plus 1, which is 2,188. So that's our answer. Answer D. Solve for x in the following inequality. 4x plus 23 is greater than negative 3x minus 6. The first thing we want to do is get all of our x terms on the same side of the inequality. I'm going to do this by adding 3x to both sides. 4x plus 3x is 7x. Bring down the plus 23 and bring down the greater than sign. Negative 3x plus 3x, those are additive inverses, so they cancel. Bring down the negative 6. Next, we want to remove 23. The opposite of adding 23 is subtracting 23. So subtract 23 from both sides. Bring down the 7x. Plus 23 and negative 23 are additive inverses, so they cancel. Bring down the greater than sign. Negative 6 and negative 23, they have the same signs, they're both negative, which means our answer is negative, and we just add the numbers together. 23 plus 6 is 29, so it's negative 29. Finally, we have to divide both sides by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1, and 1 times x is simply x. Bring down the greater than sign. And then the first thing I'll do is change this into a mixed number, since I can't actually divide negative 29 by 7 and get an integer. So 7 goes into negative 29 4 times. So it's negative 4. 4 times 7 is 28. So that means that there's 1 left over out of 7. So it's negative 4 and 1/7. X is greater than negative 4 and 1/7. Now if we look at the answers, you'll see that all the answers are in decimal form. And we can find out what 1/7 is as a decimal by dividing. So 7 doesn't go into 1, so we'll have to put a decimal here, which means bring a decimal to the top and add a 0 to it. 7 does go into 10 one time. 7 times 1 is 7. We subtract and we get 3. Add another 0, bring it down, and 7 goes into 30 4 times. 7 times 4 is 28. We subtract and we get 2. And we can stop there because all of our answers stop at the hundredths place as well. So we could write this as x is greater than negative 4 and 14 hundredths, which is answer choice A. Simplify the following expression. 25x to the 6th, y to the 7th, z squared, divided by 5x to the 5th, y squared. I'm going to start by simplifying 25 fifths. 25 divided by 5 is 5. When you divide and you have the same bases, like x to the 6th and x to the 5th, then all we have to do is subtract the exponent. So it's 6 minus 5. And then same thing with y. So it's y to the 7th divided by y squared, or y to the 7 minus 2. And then finally we have z squared, which isn't being divided by anything in the denominator, so it just stays as z squared. So now when we simplify, we have 5, x to the 6 minus 5 is 1, x to the first is just x, y to the 7 minus 2 is 5, z squared. So our answer is B. Simplify the following expression. The quantity 2x to the 4th cubed plus 2 times the quantity y to the 5th raised to the 5th power. We have to use our rules of exponents here, and our rules tell us that whatever is inside the parentheses must be raised to the exponent outside that parentheses. So we have 2 cubed times x to the 4th cubed. So when we raise an exponent to an exponent, we multiply those exponents together. Plus 2, and then again we have y to the 5th raised to the 5th. So another exponent raised to an exponent, and when you have an exponent raised to an exponent, those must be multiplied together. So y to the 5 times 5. And now we can simplify this. 2 cubed means 2 times itself 3 times, not 2 times 3. So it's 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. So 2 cubed is 8, times x to the 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 times y to the 5 times 5 is the 25th power, which is answer choice D. The quantity y plus 10 squared minus 625 equals 0. Solve for y. The first thing we want to do is add 625 to both sides, because doing that is going to help us get y alone and thus solve for it. So we bring down our quantity y plus 10 squared. Negative 625 plus 625 is 0, so that just cancels out. And that equals 0 plus 625, which is 625. Well, then we want to get rid of this squared because our y is kind of locked in those parentheses. So to unlock them, we want to do the opposite of squaring, which is square rooting. So we square root both sides. And the square root and the square undo each other. They're the exact opposites of each other. So they cancel each other out, and we're just left with y plus 10 equals, and when I take the square root of 625, I get plus or minus 25. And that's because a positive 25 squared would give me 625, but also a negative 25 squared would give me 625. So we really have two answers there. So we write it with a plus or minus. And finally, to solve for y, we need to subtract 10 from both sides. So we have y plus 10 minus 10 is 0, so equals negative 10 plus or minus 25. We have two answers, and to find them, we just need to simplify. So we have y equals negative 10 plus 25, and y equals negative 10 minus 25. All I did was separate the plus or the minus into two separate expressions. Negative 10 plus 25 is 15, while negative 10 minus 25 is negative 35. So our solutions are that y is 15 or negative 35, which is answer D. Simplify 9x times the quantity 3x squared plus 2x minus 9. To simplify, we need to distribute the 9x to all the terms inside the parentheses. And what that means is we have to multiply. So we multiply first 9x times 3x squared. 9 times 3 is 27. X times x squared is x cubed. Plus 9x times 2x, 9 times 2 is 18. X times x is x squared. Minus 9x times 9. 9 times 9 is 81x. And that would be answer choice B. 27x cubed plus 18x squared minus 81x. So remember that when you multiply x times x squared, you're adding the exponents. And that's where the x cubed comes from. X times x, again, you're adding those exponents, and those have an imaginary exponent of a 1, both of them. So x to the first times x to the first is x squared. You add the exponents, 1 plus 1. And then 9x times 9 is 81x, or negative 81x because of the minus in front of the 9. If y equals 2, what is the value of the following expression? The quantity y to the 9th divided by y cubed times 2. The first thing we need to do is substitute 2 for y in our expression. So it becomes 2 to the 9th divided by 2 cubed, and that quantity times 2. And what I want to do is rewrite it. I prefer my fractions to be stacked, so I'm going to rewrite this as 2 to the 9th divided by 2 cubed times 2. When we're dividing and we have our bases the same, so in this case 2 is our base and it's the same, we simply subtract our exponents. 9 minus 3 is 6, so that's 2 to the 6th times 2. 2 to the 6th is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times itself 6 times, and then times 2. So all we have to do is multiply all these 2's. 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 2 is 4, and then times 2. 4 times 4 is 16, times, and 4 times 2 is 8. So now I just need to multiply 16 times 8. 8 times 6 is 48. Carry the 4. 8 times 1 is 8. Plus 4 is 12. So it's 128. If the volume of a cube is 8 cubic centimeters, what is the length of the cube? Let's start with what we know. The volume is 8 cubic centimeters. The formula for volume of a cube is side cubed. And we know what the volume is, so substitute 8 centimeters cubed for volume. So that equals the side cubed, or the length cubed. Since it's a cube, all of the dimensions are the same. So if they ask for length, we can find that. It's the same as the width and the height, which is why we just use an S instead of length times width times height. But how do we solve? So we have side cubed. If we want to solve for side, then we need to do the opposite of cubing, which is to cube root. So take the cube root of both sides. And when you're taking the cube root, really what you're doing is you're finding what number times itself 3 times would give you 8. And that number would be 2. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, or 2 cubed is 8. So the cube root of 8 is 2. And the cube root of centimeters cubed is simply centimeters. And that equals the cube root of side cubed, which is side. Or again, length or width or height, all the dimensions are the same. So what is the length? Answer B, 2 centimeters. On a 6-sided die, each side has a number between 1 and 6. What is the probability of throwing a 3 or a 4? This die has 6 sides, so that means our total is 6, which is the denominator of our fraction for finding our probability. We want to know what the probability of throwing a 3 or, and that is a key word, 3 or a 4. So if it lands on either one of those, we're good. So that's 2 different numbers that we could land on out of our 6 different numbers. And then of course we can simplify our fraction by dividing the numerator and the denominator both by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 6 divided by 2 is 3, so it's 1 in 3. Or, written like this, a 1 in 3 chance. If 25% of x is 250, what is the value of x? We're going to start by decoding this sentence. We're going to translate it into a math equation. It says 25% of x. And this word of tells us to multiply. So I'm going to put a little multiplication dot above it. So we're going to multiply 25% and x. Is a very important word in math because is an equal sign. So wherever you see that word is, you can put an equal sign there. And now we can take this and write our equation. So 25% times x, we have to take our percent and change it into a decimal. So 25%, the decimal's behind it, and you move it 2 places to the left to change a percent into a decimal. So that's 25 hundredths times x, or just 25 hundredths x, is or equals 250. Now that we've written our equation, we just need to solve. So this is 25 hundredths times x. To solve for x, we do the opposite of multiplying, and we divide both sides by 25 hundredths. So 25 hundredths divided by 25 hundredths is 1, and 1 times x is simply x. So those cancel out. We bring down the equal sign, and if you have a calculator, of course you can divide that in a calculator, but I'm going to work it out off to the side. So we have 250 divided by 25 hundredths. We can't divide by a decimal, so we need to move the decimal 2 places to the right, which means we do the same with our number under our division sign. So we have to add 2 zeros to it. And now we can divide. 25 goes into 25 one time. 25 times 1 is 25, and we subtract and get 0. We bring down a 0, and 25 goes into 0 times. And that's going to keep happening for each one of these zeros. We're going to keep bringing down zeros, and we're going to keep getting zeros. So we end up with x is 1,000. Now, if that's a little confusing to you, you can do it one other way. So you can rewrite this as 250 divided by, and then 25 hundredths is 1/4. So it's 250 divided by 1/4, which still might look a little confusing, but we can even rewrite that to 250 divided by 1/4. And then we can copy, change, flip. We can copy 250, change division to multiplication, and flip 1/4 to be 4. 250 times 4 is 1,000, which is the same thing we got when we divided with our decimal. So either way, the answer is 1,000. And if you put that back into the sentence, it makes sense. 25% of 1,000 is 250. In the following inequality, solve for x. Negative 4x plus 8 is greater than or equal to 48. To solve for x, we need to get x alone, which means undoing the operations that are being done to x currently. And that is negative 4 times x and plus 8. So we'll start by getting rid of the plus 8. And we can get rid of it by doing the exact opposite of adding 8, subtracting 8. And if we subtract 8 from the left side of our inequality symbol, then we must also subtract 8 from the right side to keep it even. So we bring down our negative 4x. A positive 8 minus 8 is 0, is greater than or equal to 48 minus 8 is 40. And we're almost done. Now we need to undo negative 4 times x. And the opposite of multiplying by a negative 4 is dividing by a negative 4. Now with inequalities, there is a special rule you have to remember. And that is, if you divide both sides by a negative number, or you multiply both sides by a negative number, you have to flip the sign. So now instead of greater than or equal to, our sign is now a less than or equal to sign. And again, that's because we divided both sides by a negative number. -4 divided by -4 is 1, and 1 times x is x. 40 divided by -4, a positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 40 divided by 4 is 10. So x is less than or equal to -10. Answer D. If W equals 7, calculate the value of the following expression. 8W squared minus 12W plus the quantity of 4W minus 5 plus 6. In order to simplify, the first thing we need to do is substitute 7 for W. So we start by bringing down the 8. We're going to replace W with 7, so it's 8 times 7 squared minus 12. Again, replace W with 7, so times 7 plus, bring down the parentheses, 4 times W, or times 7, minus 5 plus 6. In order to simplify this, we must follow the order of operations, or PEMDAS. We start with parentheses, then exponents, then we multiply and divide from left to right, and finally we add and subtract from left to right. So that means we need to start with anything inside parentheses. So here we have a couple of different operations inside our parentheses. We have multiplication and subtraction. Well, again, if we consult PEMDAS, we can see that we're supposed to always multiply and divide before we add and subtract. So that means we're starting with 4 times 7. So you'll just copy everything else. The 8 times 7 squared minus 12 times 7 plus, bring down the parentheses. Finally, we get to 4 times 7, 28, minus 5, and bring down the plus 6. So we haven't finished simplifying what's in our parentheses, and that's what we'll do now, 28 minus 5. So bring down the 8 times 7 squared minus 12 times 7 plus 28 minus 5 is 23 plus 6. Now if we go back to PEMDAS, after parentheses, which we have no more of, we then simplify any exponents. And we do have exponents right here, 7 squared. So that's what we'll do next. 8 times 7 squared means 7 times 7, and that's 49. Minus 12 times 7 plus 23 plus 6. Okay, after exponents is our multiplication and division from left to right. So first we see 8 times 49. We can just go off to the side and multiply that. 49 times 8. 8 times 9 is 72, so write the 2 and carry the 7. 8 times 4 is 32. 32 plus 7 is 392. So we have 392 minus 12 times 7 plus 23 plus 6. We need to continue multiplying and dividing from left to right. So next I see 12 times 7. So we'll multiply that. 12 times 7. 7 times 2 is 14. Write the 4, carry the 1. 7 times 1 is 7. plus 1 is 8. So that's 84. Bring down the 392 minus 84 plus 23 plus 6. So all we have left now is our addition and subtraction from left to right. So we start with 392 minus 84. I'll do that over here. So we have to borrow from the 9, it becomes an 8. We have 12 here. 12 minus 4 is 8. 8 minus 8 is 0, and we bring down the 3. So we have 308 plus 23 plus 6. So that means we need to add 23 to our 308. That's the next thing we're going to do. 8 plus 3 is 11. Carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. And bring your 3 down. So we have 331 plus 6. And that's the last thing we're going to do is add 6 to 331. So we get 7, 3, 3. Our final answer is 337, which is answer choice C.